Welcome to Will Talks. I am so happy that we have an amazing person today with us. He has more than 25 years of experience within the field of education, school transformation, teacher training, policy level work at within schools, and he's just done such an amazing job when it comes to motivating and inspiring education leaders. I myself have been a student. I think I joined his program maybe 15 years ago. And he was the first person that I heard who brought the concepts of quality in education. Everybody thought that they were all great quality institutions. And, that's when Dr. Senthil Kumaran comes into the scene and then says, hey, let's define and let's uncover, let's unravel what quality really means. So, Dr. Senthil Kumaran, I'm so happy that you are here today. You're my teacher, you're my mentor, you're my guide. I'm honored that I am here today to, poke your brain a little more and get as much as we can.
Thank you, Willie, for getting me here on your talk.
Tell us a little more about yourself, where you've come from, how did you land up in this, what drives you, your passion.
I think being a student of, Kendra Vidyalaya across the country who has traveled, seen multiple kind of cultural context, and then did something what people normally think is not possible. I'm basically from Tamil Nadu, a son of an ex-serviceman. Traveling across country, you looked at what every culture taught you. Fortunately, I had the opportunity to travel to remotest locations during the course of my own experience. But before getting into the teaching, I think it was very, very interesting that what should be a career choice that needs to be made. But many people thought that I think when you do a graduation, particularly in arts, you don't make a career out of it. But then this was something which was very, very important for people to understand, appreciate that every course you can create careers. And I think from there onwards, I think there was no looking back. Took up a post-graduation, post-graduation which many people say, मद्रासी लोग हिंदी में नहीं बात कर सकते. So that was something which was very, very interesting to say. And somebody questioned me that you guys can't do it. But always had an aspiration that I should get into some kind of, civil services per se as such, and then try to look out at what could be a better option. So when there were 3 different courses available, Master Business Administration, Political Science, Social Work and Hindi, I thought that Hindi was something which I was very, very comfortable, and many people said South Indians लोग हिंदी बात नहीं कर सकते. And then somebody challenged me saying कि हिंदी में कैसे MA करोगे? And then I thought I think I should do that. And it was very interesting when, I don't want to mention the professor's name, but this professor from Uttar Pradesh had a very interesting conversation in one of the programs. And when he was having the conversation, and I said, sir, आप जो statement बोल रहे हैं अपना statement वापस ले लीजिए, क्योंकि हम भी आपसे अच्छी हिंदी बात कर सकते हैं. So then he said कि सर आप जहाँ भी रुकेंगे वहाँ से मैं शुरू करता हूँ, जहाँ मैं रुकता हूँ वहाँ आप शुरू कीजिए. And the whole conversation was very interesting. Then this particular professor, was using sa as sha. The pronunciation was a problem. So I said, पहले आप अपना sa और sha को शुद्ध कीजिए सर. मेरा sa काफ़ी साफ है, आपका sha अभी भी sa sha के रूप में है. And that's how the whole thing happened. And then उसके बाद there was no looking back. Did my masters in Hindi, जो normally people say we can't do it. Did my MPhil, then PhD in Hindi, and then became the youngest probably in Bangalore University at 28 to get the PhD too. And this particular professor had said that how are you going to get your PhD? Let me see. So that was a challenge. So I thought, okay, let me try to break that. But most important thing was that being teacher was something very, very interesting. Because once you have done a course, and particularly when you feel that you would love to kind of go back and add value to a larger community, I think the person on whom I did research was Rahul Sankrityayan. And this was the person who has done a lot of travelogue. He wrote a lot of books based on travelogue, and he did transformation based on his work and his experiences. Maybe I think I got a lot of inspiration from that. And learning has been always, a great thereafter. But one thing which was very, very true, many people say that they have a lot of myths. One, as I said, Tamilians can't speak proper Hindi is one kind of a myth. Many people say Hindi teacher कैसे एक education transformation ला सकता है, you know. That was again something which was, because normally when you try to talk about the core subject, people, teachers normally try to get to do things, but then I think this motivated me to say that okay, नहीं, एक साधारण सा हिंदी टीचर भी आज शिक्षा में परिवर्तन ला सकता है. So that was something which was very, very interesting. But I love to thank those kids at school, in Christ School where I started. I still remember my, head of the department took me to the classroom and said, okay, ये आपकी classes शुरू करो. And as a postgraduate who has never went through a structured education program, it was not very easy to kind of handle kids who were coming till your waist. But the most interesting thing was the learning that came out as part of my journey. And when I try to look back, those kids, I still remember there was a movie of Arnold Schwarzenegger's movie where in Kindergarten Cops, where he basically, every time when the kids were opening up their mouth, he will fire in the air and, control the class. But then I think the kids taught me how exactly to teach. So thanks to all those kids. And it was interesting. Last year they celebrated a get-together and they called me for that particular get-together.
Wow. It reminds me of the Raymond ad.
Correct. So I think it was very, very interesting. I loved, I think they gave a very interesting gift and they said, we want you to open out here, which they said that कि हम तो आपकी बात नहीं सुनते थे, लेकिन ये आपकी बात सुनेगी. And they gave a beautiful Alexa to me and said कि सर ये आपकी बात सुनेगी जो भी आप कहेंगे करके. So I think I appreciated that, the kids, when it comes to education, they may not remember the concepts, but they remember the experiences what we have created for them. But being a teacher at school was not all that interesting, but it was much more interesting when I started working with evening college called as
Evening college.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I was teaching kids who were at school 5, 6, 7, 8, and then you had evening college where these people used to come just for the degree for the sake of promotion and other things. But these kids taught me how to emotionally connect to children. Because it was very important for us to understand that if kids were emotionally connected, they are willing to learn whatever you're going to share. This was my first learning which I had as a teacher. And this helped me to kind of, reinvent myself that what can be the methods to, get to become a teacher who is liked by the teacher, or by the students. Because what I have learned over the years is, over 30 years now in academics, if you're emotionally connected to kids, kids are willing to go extra mile to basically hear you, translate your ideas, and then try to take these things forward. But I had also another advantage. My senior was very strict. So I learned this.
Became easier for you.
I should thank her because now she's no more, but I think I loved her because she was strict and I was very, very easygoing without any kind of bias. I think that helped me quite a lot to kind of get engaged with children. So whenever the kids will make noises, I will say, मैं तुम्हारा class छोड़ के जा रहा हूँ कहीं. So immediately kids say, नहीं sir. So you kind of, stay back. So that taught us that very interestingly was that emotional connect was very, very important. Then when I went to evening college, I thought that I may use these strategies which may not work. Imagine you are trying to tell कि मैं in the evening college कि मैं class छोड़ के जा रहा हूँ and you will not find sir कब जा रहे हैं आप, kind of. So that was something which was very, very interesting, which came up as part of this learning. And thanks to Christ, because then I started handling teens, young adults who were kind of, again, very, very interested. They also taught quite a lot. So you had one side, the adults who were kind of coming and working. You had school. And then from the school, I think I wanted to do my MPhil. So I moved on to Christ, college, now university, and then started working with them. There again, the students taught quite a lot. And I think this thing has been always there in my mind कि एक हिंदी lecturer या हिंदी teacher शिक्षा में कैसे परिवर्तन ला सकता है. So that kept me kind of saying कि okay, अगला क्या कर सकते हैं, अगला क्या कर सकते हैं, अगला क्या कर सकते हैं. I still remember हमने एक प्रोग्राम शुरू किया था जिसका नाम था जागृति, because students used to go for all kind of competition, but they never used to come for a Hindi competition. So we asked children कि what will make things happen. But that was the time actually the whole thought came in. Somebody, said a very interesting thing, कि Mata Saraswati and Mata Lakshmi don't get together.
Oh.
So if you are going to start looking at Hindi, which is Mata Saraswati, and add a component of Lakshmi to it, then I think life may become much more easy. So then started my journey with the event called as Jagrati, and that's how I got into baptized into events.
Wow.
And the event was very interesting. 20 minutes format, anything can be done, comparing points, and that gave us the lot of things. So we brought in people like Rakesh Sharma, the squadron leader Rakesh Sharma, and we asked him a very interesting question, saying कि जब आपसे इंदिरा गांधी ने पूछा था आपसे जब आप स्पेस पे थे कि राकेश जी वहाँ से भारत कैसा लगता है, तो naturally the first thing came up was his mother tongue or the language what he liked the most, and he said सारे जहाँ से अच्छा हिंदुस्तान हमारा. So like this we had to kind of convert the students to come towards Hindi and then start loving the subject and then start motivating. Thereafter, started working with the Christ, strategic core group. Today I can take a little credit that even the vision mission has some credit, some points of mine, which is still a nurturing ground is my contribution to the vision of that particular campus. So I think it's always good, thanks to those priests, again, who gave the space. Because they have not thought that, okay, this guy is coming from Hindi, so what he will be able to add value. So that space and recognition kind of helped me to kind of evolve. 11 years in education, as a teacher, as a lecturer. Then the transformation journey was very interesting because we started a center called a Center for Education Beyond Curriculum, which was a unique center at Christ, where we wanted to vet all the practices and we wanted to get some validated what was being done at Christ. And then we said, okay, fine, from here we will start this whole process. During this particular process, we also met CII, that is Confederation of Indian Industry. So CII had an Institute of Quality and they were
Almost like an apex body, right?
Yeah, CII is basically the industry association, largest industry association, taking care of all sectors, predominantly in manufacturing. But education was one of those areas. And I would like to remember late Mr. Narsim Shenoy, who had this vision that CII Institute of Quality must work with schools. And that's how I got into schools to start working quite a lot with the schools. And I still remember we used to send invitation to 50, 60 people, principals to come and attend a training program at our institute. We used to bus them from the city center, take them to the institute and expose them to quality management practices and principles. And hardly 30, 35 people will come in. But that's how we started the journey. And today I can say, you can name a state, you can name at least the Middle East and countries, multiple countries, you can say, traveled extensively, worked with schools, worked with principals, worked with policy makers. But only thing which kind of always important is the transformation. And that particular transformation trigger kind of came in from Christ. Then the person, Rahul Sankritan, on whom I did my research, thanks to all those priests. And then people like Mr. Shenoy, Mr. Naz, and Srinivasan, who actually created a space to say that, okay, fine, now we are here, go ahead, work with schools, colleges, help them to improve the practice.
And this is such rich and diversified experience. First of all, I want to tell you that, you're a damn good teacher. And the reason I would say that is because you have shaped your teaching style and strategies. You've been shaped by children. You see, and when you're shaped by children, you're shaped with purity, you're shaped with the essence of what really children need, right? And I think that is what makes all the difference, because every time I personally attend your session, I just find it so real and so authentic. The examples you give, I just relate to it. It's the first-hand experience that you have that you're able to retain and bring in and share with so much simplicity. I want to ask you one question. Do you even know how many schools you have probably visited?
Many people have attempted to ask this particular question, but I think I need to do this exercise, but I don't find time. But one thing which is very, very interesting is that at this occasion, I would like to thank all those school managements, which gave us the opportunity to step in. Because many managements are even reluctant that the originality will come out of their campuses. Because it's very, very difficult for them to hear that you're not doing well. When they get multiple rankings by multiple, agencies, and they say, oh, we are number 1, number 2, number 3.
Everyone's number 1.
Everyone is number 1. I don't know. And I should appreciate the creativity, the creative team of all these organizations which do recognitions like this, that how they try to find out such beautiful name, emerging, promising, and all those terms.
Astonishing.
So, astonishing. Okay, you can you can keep on adding on it, but I think that there were few managements which are willing. I still remember my first school was again a school managed by a corporate house, a corporate leader, L&T, New Era School, Mumbai was my first school near Kemp's Flyover. That was the first school which actually I walked in and started my first consulting assignment from there. And thereafter today I can say there are, as I said, no, a
I
smaller
think it must
school.
be 3,000-4,000 schools. You
Yeah,
think?
more than 3,000-4,000 schools, I should say, because you have worked in multiple models like cluster. So when you try to say whether it is corporate managed, mission managed, so when you say Christian mission institutions across the country, whether it is CMI, MSFS, Montfort, CSI, Dash and Managed, so you can name multiple congregations. I think have traveled not only in terms of in the Christian community, but when you go to Hindu community, whether it is Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan, Chinmaya Mission, I think for last 10 years, I have been training every other principal who's taking up that particular responsibility of leadership with the SWAD model. They call it a school with a difference. They have their own Chinmaya Vision program. So how do you try to imbibe that into the leadership is something very, very important. With Bhavans, you have done so much of work. With corporate chains, you have done a lot of work. But every time when you do these kind of work, you also learn what different management styles are, what different thought process. So that's why I always, and one particular segment I would like to mention, the alumni showed a lot of faith in this model. Particularly, this was my learning from Japan too. Because when we went to Japan in one of my AOTS programs under CIA AOTS scheme, I asked this question to Professor Kano, saying that you have used so much of management philosophies into industry, how much it is working into the school and how successful it is. He said, no, not much. But
Really?
yes. So when we may talk, people may say, see, there are some things which comes very naturally for a country like Finland, Japan. So when you try to talk about Japan, the discipline, the practices which people are talking today in WhatsApp, they clean their toilet.
Kaizen.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean
Those practices.
Okay.
So it comes very naturally to their
WhatsApp
culture.
University.
Yeah. So whatever you see is only a part of it, but that is also part of their culture. So when it comes culture, it comes as very, very natural. Like if you go to Finland, many people keep asking, I've done some 6-7 trips now. Every time when I go, one thing which I have learned is 2 T's are very, very important. One is trust. Second is the teacher. So the teacher plays the important role and the trust on the teacher plays a very, very important role, which is a missing component. And I think it is visible across Indian schools. If a teacher is taking a class, there is somebody else who's going and doing an observation. For that observation, there is one more person who's doing observation. So, and I think, and unfortunately, what I find is that many of our friends or colleagues or teaching our own community people, when they started going to Finland, they started asking Finnish teachers, do you have class observations? So in one of my schools, in my last visit before COVID, principal had kept few observation forms she has created. And she showed the observation form and our friends who traveled with me loved it. And they said, oh, you also have observation form. We have observation form.
We also have.
We also have observation form. Then I walked up to this principal and I asked that, okay, please tell me, do you have a really observation form? She says, no, whenever Indian delegation comes in, we have an observation form, but otherwise we are not even authorized to walk into. So we need to understand the cultural context. So Japanese also struggled, but most of the corporate leaders who were on multiple school boards, they wanted these management philosophies to come and actually get embedded into the school system. And that's how most of the fundamental principles of total quality management, we were able to kind of get into schools. And it started with, I should say, Kuruvilla Jacob Initiative, which was Madras Christian College alumni. They came together and they remembered their headmaster by name, late Mr. Kuruvilla Jacob. On his remembrance, they would like to kind of, wanted certain attributes in schools which they missed in the present schools. So after hearing all these, alumni in a closed door interaction, and it was very interesting to see the alumni, the person who taught our former finance minister, Chidambaramji, the national security advisor, Narayanan, Vijay Santanam from Breaks India, N. Ram, N. Murli from Hindu. This is the profile of people. Prakash Karath, you can say Vino Maman, they were all students of this particular great legendary principal who carried practices across, who learned practices across globe and brought into the Madras Christian College High School. So I think all these, what you are saying, I can put them into 8 fundamental principles.
Whoa,
And then I
rattle
said,
it off for us.
yes. So then I think it became very, very interesting. So when I said, okay, these are the 8 points you're saying, they said, yes. So I said, okay, can we use the TKM philosophy and start working with
Wait, you're going to share the 8 points, right?
Yeah. But do you want me to share now? It's okay.
Yeah, it'll be amazing. Yeah.
The first and the foremost thing is all about is customer focus, which is nothing but the stakeholder focus. Because many a time schools don't even focus on their child or the parent or who is there. I'm not even sure when was the last time a teacher actually asked, how do you want me to teach you? The second important theme is the leadership. So when we try to talk about the leadership, it is not about one individual.
It's not leader, right?
It is not leader. It is the leadership. It's the whole practice. It's the whole process. How do you are trying to have a complete team? Where is your B and C team in your campus, which drives quality? And that's how you kind of look at it. The third important principle is process. Whether somebody is there or not there, how do you try to run your schools very, very transparently, independently? Otherwise, I think you also run a school. If there is a teacher absent, the substitution coordinator struggles to get a person, I think it becomes a big challenge. So when you try to talk about a process, the process improvement and process as a concept is something which is missing. Not only this, when we try to talk about a whole systems approach, we try to focus on practices. Now, if you try to talk about a very interesting thing like a PISA, Performance of International Student Assessment.
And this is like an international test.
It's like an international test.
Which I think India didn't do this year.
India, it was not done across globe because of the COVID. But India has already signed up and there are going to be three types of schools which are going to take up the examination. And I'm sure very soon PISA for private schools also will be available in India. I think it will be very, very important tool for even private schools to basically take up the assessment and assess how effective is their system. Because
like the whole school system.
The whole school system.
And that's different from process, right?
That's different from process. So because processes together makes a system. And they are intertwined, they are interlinked, which people typically look at them in isolation. And they don't even try to connect them. And if you don't connect them, it doesn't work. Another important thing is that fact-based decision making, which is nothing but data-driven. How much you use data.
Not feeling-based.
Not feeling-based. Otherwise, I think in Indian schools, we run more of feeling. Ki aaj meri class achhi ho gayi, bacche khush the. All that is okay.
But did you like my class today?
Yes. And then people are very happy about it. But we don't have data to prove how much the class was good. Because we are only trying to look at something at feeling level, not at, you need emotional parameters to look at it. But there is something called as hard data. And if you don't have hard data, how are you even communicating a parent that your kid really needs to kind of work on these areas?
Data doesn't lie.
Data doesn't lie. And when we try to sit on a parent-teacher meeting, typically in Indian school, we have few answer scripts which are being kind of put across and people just keep talking about it. Oh, iska acha hai, iska acha nahi hai. And typically what happens, the people who are in the middle segment, they become more of ayaram, gayaram. Otherwise, typically you get the people who are performing well or who are not performing well. You get only these two things. So data plays again a very, very important role. And this is also something very interesting which I'm seeing in a lot of youngsters who are coming. So the next gen people who are getting into now schools.
Like teachers?
Teachers
or school leaders?
School leaders and owners.
Okay.
They are much more focused on data while the traditional principles are still, the academicians are still trying to struggle quite a lot. So the new gen, the generation, second generation and third generation which is coming into academics now believes in data.
Wow.
And that's a good news because if you try to look at the new education policy, it's going to be all about data. You're trying to talk about a 360-degree assessment and I was a little disappointed when somebody told me from one particular, I don't want to mention, group said that, 360 mein kuch nahi hai, aap SWOT analysis kar do, ho jayega 360. It is not about 360 like that. We really need to have the data.
This is oversimplification.
This is oversimplification and you are trying to run away from your responsibility by just saying that things have to be done. So peer assessment is not that how Willie is performing today in front of me, I'll just give some score. No. Peer assessment is that there is a rubric, there is a process which needs to be followed. And that's where the quality fundamental principles.
It's a thought through, very considered approach. Huh?
Considered approach because you are engaging the parent also to give a feedback on the kid, how the kid is behaving at home. So there is a data point which is coming from that particular space. Then second, what my class mates are talking about me, the colleagues or the who are my peers, what they are trying to talk about. Third is what my teachers think about me. That's again, and what I think about myself. Because if I don't think about myself, then
Well, 360 has always been working in companies, right? I mean,
Yes.
they really look at it from a multi-modal, multi-dimensional perspective.
yes, but in a corporate sector, I think I may have still little disagreement on that because culturally, when you try to talk in India, we don't give negative comment to somebody who is elder or
Yeah.
our bosses.
Yes.
So there is a cultural context I think we really
Yes.
need to look at when it comes to the corporate world. But we really need to understand that how exactly in education it is not the same. So when we are going to look at that particular kind of that kind of a data, and if you're able to help a child to say that beta in English, you are not performing well you're not comprehending it well, so you're not able to write well. So now the role is given to the child to take the leadership, saying that you will work on comprehending and converting them into some kind of a language or some kind of writing, some kind of vlogging, some kind of blogging, some kind of video. You can create anything. But at the end of the day, schools must be also ready to do these kind of assessments. So coming back to the data, this is where NEP is very, very important. And I loved this idea under a new education policy. Again, it is a very, very data driven. Many people...
So for people who don't know, this new education policy is out there, right?
It's there and it is going to be implemented.
Monumental shift is going to happen.
Yes, and I think we really need to do a 180-degree turnaround for the teacher, school administrator, and the parent community.
Like, this is significant.
This is going to be a significant change, and implementation is already visible. So particularly why I'm giving this example of NEP is that 360-degree data, when I try to talk from the quality perspective, I think when you try to look at the 358 assessment, and I think there are a lot of people who are misusing, or there's a lot of negative rumor which is going around. The 358 is all about board examinations being introduced. Why are you trying to create a fear? A third 358 model is already being followed at Singapore.
Okay.
Where you do a diagnostic assessment at the grade 3. So in India too, we will go through that kind of a process where the child who has some kind of a foundational knowledge, numeracy and literacy, this particular kid is going to be assessed on saying, where are you in terms of numeracy and literacy? So in third standard, I have been assessed as not assessed for promotion, but assessed for learning, where exactly, what is the level and how much I can actually move. Then you do assessment again at grade 5 and grade 8. So in grade 5, the progression... Very logical and scientific, and again, why I'm saying is that there's a lot of data which is going to be playing a very important role. So when you try to look at the quality philosophy and data, I think this is very, very quality oriented. So when you have a 358 assessment data, the kid will decide what exactly needs to be done. So in grade 5, you are actually trying to expose the kid on 10 bagless days. That means the kid is going to be in 6, 7, 8. The kid is not going to carry bags. Many people are misconceiving, reducing the bag weight. It's all nonsensical. What we really need to understand is that it is taking the kid away from the regular school to 150 kilometers of your school, the kind of vocation, occupation, businesses, the different kind of career things which are available, children must be exposed. And the model is very, very simple. You have done in grade 5 some kind of assessment, 3 you have done assessment, and 6, 7, 8, 10 days each year, you are exposing the kid for 10 different vocations. So typically, in 3 years, you are exposing 30 different vocations to the kid.
Like that's the end of a 10th standard child saying, I don't know what to do.
Correct. So you're not even 10th. You are now trying to say that 8th itself. So in 8th, when you have your academic scores, and these academic scores are again based on competency-based assessment. So your competency will be assessed, not anything else.
Not content.
Not the content.
In the sense, not what you regurgitate in a paper.
Correct. So you may have
Competency.
yes. So probably when we are trying to talk about the competency of children, so that's one kind of assessment. Second, the child is already exposed to 30 different vocations. Third, there is an assessment which has been done by the third party. So you have the 358 progression data, you have the data which is coming by the child himself, and then you also have the competency data available with you. So you have exposure come the scores, which will help the child to basically decide what careers I should choose thereafter.
Wow.
So today
So NEP is coming to all schools.
has to come, and my suggestion, I know that it's on concurrent list. I think if you go through the basics, what according to me, NEP has asked us to go back to basics. It's a somewhere during the process of growth, we left our basics and now we have to go back to our basics.
All the bells and whistles.
Correct. Now, if you try to talk about a Gurukul system, I think you take example of Pandavas itself. All 5 brothers had 5 different skill sets. They were nurtured in those 5 different areas. And they said that, okay, if you are good in Dhanush, you go and do this. If you are good in Gada Beam, you go and practice on this. If you look at Yudhishthir, you are
Like
good.
that process of mastery.
Process of mastery in one particular domain. And that's very, very important. So this is where the 358 data will be very important for the child to decide, and the parent help also parent. With 360-degree assessment happening, the child will be able to decide quickly, okay, I'm going to get into this particular area. And now what happens in 9, 10, 11, 12, when you have these semester system coming in with 48 papers, 6 papers every semester, 8 semester, and you need to complete these papers, because at the end of the day, you need to course completion may happen in 12th, and then you write a common university entrance test, and then you get into the course segment. So that's going to be the way forward. I'm not getting into that part of it, but I would like to play only at the data. Now, this child who is exposed to 30 different vocation after 8th standard chooses a subject what he or she likes. So I like something in sculpture.
So you got choice.
You got choice. So I may take up mathematics with psychology. I may take up economics with English,
Which was unheard of.
which is unheard of. Because typically when a school, because see, at the end of the day, I will not blame the schools too, because schools also need to look at a financial model. So they can have only 4 teachers like PCMB.
Yeah, it's a timetabling.
It's a timetabling basically, and you are trying to look at a cost optimization with the given resources. But in this particular new format, I think we may really need to kind of change the perspective and ask people to look little more clearly. And that's something which will be very, very important. So this, again, going back to the 30 vocations, now the child in 9, 10, 11, 12, 15 days gets exposed to internship. So he will, suppose if I am good in digital space, so I will go and work with a digital company for 15 days, and I see, does this really interest me? If it interests me, then I will continue my internship next year again in that. Out of the 30 vocations which I am got
Going to
exposed to.
start making selections.
Yes. So it's practically 90 days you are actually getting baptized into something what you love, not what the program wants you
Yeah,
to.
10 years later, nobody will play ads like stuck in the wrong job because kids
Correct.
won't be.
Kids won't be. And I think with the new education policy talking about 50% of students getting into vocational space, the changes in the higher education space with certificate, diploma, degree and integrated program, I think it's going to make a lot of sense. So coming back to the point, I think the whole child will be moving or progressing with the data, which is a key component of quality.
That whole school, or you mentioned the whole school systems.
Whole system school. Yeah. So what will happen, today everybody takes a credit of saying, okay, we are number 1 in the board examination, we are district topper, we are city topper, or we are gully topper. Everybody talks about all toppers. Maybe I think the NEP will kill out this, and schools will surely have a big challenge, because they may have to kind of instead of putting some data on student success, they may have to put a data on achievement of learning outcomes
Across the whole school, right?
across the whole school. So you may have a page on your Facebook or on your website or any
dynamic
other
page.
the dynamic page, and then you have a data so that parents can also make a choice whether this particular school's practices, which is nothing but a quality fundamental principle. I think it's very, very important that you really need to work on it and start looking at it. Not only this, the data, the system, the process, the leadership, the stakeholder focus, all this should also be something called as a mutually beneficial supplier relationship, which is the last fundamental principle. If you try to look at that, I think we really...
A mutually beneficial supplier
relationships. Now, what does that basically means is today, any service provider, unfortunately, is considered as a vendor. He is not considered as a partner.
Correct.
So my suggestion through this particular
Correct.
show is also is that
Yeah.
you are not able to do, there is a service provider who's coming, helping you to bridge that particular gap. So he is your partner, not a vendor. So unfortunately, this is something which we really need to kind of look at it. And if you try to look at the first fundamental principle and the last fundamental principle, there it talks about stakeholder focus. And here it talks about mutually beneficial relationship and partnership. So it basically talks about that you understand the needs, you understand the context, you have something which is commonly been given, how you transact or how do you get the experience. See, so far the responsibility on a child's success was on teacher. Now onwards it will be 50-50%. So the responsibility is also on the child. So child will take the decision.
You're building agency in children.
Yes. So he or she will be kind of, taking ownership for the learning. And one classic example to find out the gaps what we had during the COVID time was, many parents complained, many teachers complained saying that, oh, bacha आधा घंटा नहीं बैठता, 20 minute नहीं बैठता, क्या होगा education में? He's always sitting on mobile, But today, then what happened thereafter? Because most of the schools in the country never focused on what independent learning strategies are. So my request is that the people now through the new education...
Kids were not prepared, right?
Kids were not...
It's
even
like
teachers were
wartime
not
versus
prepared.
peacetime.
Yes.
Yeah.
So kids were not prepared. The teachers were not prepared. But I would like to acknowledge the contribution of the teachers out here because they did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
They were not aware of technology. They knew some basics of it. But with that, they kind of changed the whole thought process. And I think that makes a lot of sense because I've been trying to talk to multiple schools. In smaller towns like Kadalur, in Dindivanam, in smaller towns of Tamil Nadu, it was very interesting to see. If you ask me, Senthil, do you know how to, project from your mobile PPT? I will not be able to do till date. I am not literate in that particular part of it. I can do it with my laptop or with my desktop, but
ask
not
an
with
8-year-old.
And now you can ask the teachers how one teacher was preparing and how other teachers kind of came across. And then they knew how to do the broadcast and then, used multiple technology platforms to reach their kids. I think that was amazing. So I salute, every teacher who had that motivation and drive to learn quickly, adapt quickly and drive quickly. But I'm not very sure what kind of learning happened, but engagement, yes. Because the whole design was not for engagement, not for learning, but for engagement.
Yeah.
And I think most of the assessments across the globe have said that there is a 10 to 15% minus when it comes to learning levels. There is a gap which is visible. And I have been doing workshops on learning losses. How do you bridge learning losses? And again, the mantra which I believe, which NEP is talking about is all about is experiential learning.
Yeah.
So that's going to be something very,
How
very...
do you put like the child at the center of the game?
Child
How do you put the child in the driving seat? How do you make sure that children are taking decisions and that learner autonomy is there and they're taking responsibility of their own learning, which I think is going to be, groundbreaking. It's going to transform. No one can ever use those examples again saying, 200 years ago, schools are looking the same as now, because it's not going to look the same.
Yes, because see, once upon a time, it was a guru. And then we had the cohort model where we had different cohorts and people were trying to come together and basically learn through a community. By today, thanks to, again, I say COVID. And I think NEP came at the right time, COVID. So COVID actually made people to learn technology, acquire new methods of teaching.
Really fast.
Yes. And people knew how to use something at their home front to use a experiential learning in the classroom. And I think that makes a lot of sense.
And I just hope that teachers continue to do that, even if schools or school owners or school principals say, no, let's go back to only offline and nothing online. No. I really hope that, we continue to use both those technologies and leverage it.
Yeah, I have a very interesting, thing to share the school management as well as to the teachers is don't become that Vikram Vital story. Every time Vikram opens the mouth and the Vital goes back to the tree. So don't go back to this pre-COVID. You have created a lot of content. You have created a lot of masala for yourself.
Right.
Now it's the right time that you should be able to do it. And my request to all the management through this show is that please invest on your teachers. Because if you're going to invest on people and practices, performance will come. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And we really need to kind of look at it. And the request to also to the teachers is don't go back on this side. And the management is one side you're investing, but one thing which they should also start doing is that they should start celebrating something called as a pandemic week.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, offline classes.
No
this
on-campus
week, and we're only going to. I'm
Yeah.
going to do that. I'm going to start like next week.
I think this is something which is going to be important for teachers to kind of practice this on a regular basis. Because if you're not going to practice this, even if there is one more pandemic
You're going to
coming,
lose the skill. Yeah.
you're going to lose it.
This has been phenomenal. You've been able to share and beautifully outline like a framework for school leaders, school principals, anyone involved in education to go back and redesign their schools. It is the questions that you've put in the minds of people, the reflection that they're going to do that's going to make real change happen. I guess that's all we have time for today. I'm so happy that you've been able to share so beautifully. Clearly, we're not done here with this conversation, and until next time, I guess let's as you always say, lage raho.
That's the mantra of Lage Raho, and my request is ABC. Request to teachers, managements through this show is that continue to raise your awareness, build on those awareness, and bring the change scientifically and systematically so that we can have a better community in which all of us live in. Thank you very much, Willie, for getting me on this show.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you.